Ask me how I know. My first motorcycle was a giant heavy off-road bike, and I really truly thought that was the way to go. I immediately, within months of riding it, was like, this is not good. What do I do? How can I make this bike better? I put new tires on it. I tried that. I tried a bunch of different stuff. And in the end, the answer was always right there in front of me. Hello and welcome to Can We Talk About It, where we just talk about off-road motorcycle. Today, we're going to talk about off-road and on-road. Can you have your cake and eat it too? ? Let's talk about dual sports. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about my first off-road motorcycle, my first dual sport, so to speak, and how I bought one of the greatest rally bikes ever made and actually came to regret it. But can one bike really do both things? Can it do street and off-road well? And I think that that's a really serious challenge. And I think that because of the word dual sport is thrown around so much, we find ourselves a little bit confused in this segment. Popularly, we say there are lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight dual sports. And lightweight would be, say, a 300. Middleweight would be like a 650. Like big bikes would be your Tenere, your 850s, and I don't even know what the heck you would call a GS 1200, like just fat. I think you'd call it that. And I think one of the issues that I take with all of these bikes is that they're not necessarily dual sport. I think that the reason people buy these bikes is because they say, well, I want a comfortable motorcycle that I could ride for 4 hours to the trail and then ride home. Hold with me here. I've done races that are 6 hours long. I've done an 8-hour rally. And the guys who won those races, the guys that I lined up against before I took off, they weren't on Teneres. They weren't on bikes with low, big seats. They were on these. So I want to show you what I ended up with. After I bought a big, hardcore rally bike, the best Dakar bike to ever live. It's a big V-twin. It's super fast. It's capable off-road. It's capable on-road. Why would I switch from that? Well, the truth of the matter is that it's super heavy though. These bikes are just better overall because they're so much more capable. Weight is so important. Today, I want to talk about these. Not all of these. You'll see that I'm on Honda's website and they sell everything from the Africa Twin all the way down to this starting 150. I would argue that a beginner rider or even even an advanced rider would have more fun on the 150 than they would on the Africa Twin. That's just such a heavy motorcycle that it's going to be more of a burden than it is going to be more of a toy. But remember how I talked about earlier where we have the lightweight, the 300, the 650s, which would be your middle, and then your heavyweights? Well, they're just, the whole segment's ignoring the fact that there's an actual race bike in this lineup right here. It's right there to see. It's right there to see, and it's there on a lot of the manufacturers' pages. The CRF 450 is actually a CRF, which is their motocross bike, dressed up to go on the road. It has a light. It has a plate mount. It has everything you need. And if you go to a rally race, these are the bikes you're going to see because you technically have to have a bike that can go on the road legally. Okay. But you also want a race bike. CRF. I'm not just going to talk about the CRF. Today, I want to give you a bunch of different options that you can choose from that are all going to be these bikes. Now, if you're going to say that these aren't comfortable long term, I can tell you that if you're not sitting on the seat, if you're going to say that the seats are too uncomfortable long term, well, you shouldn't be sitting down. And the bikes don't vibrate as much as they used to. A lot of people say, well, these single cylinder bikes, they vibrate. Well, they have balancers now, guys. You can ride these things for 6 to 8 hours. I know because I've done it. I've even rally raced on a 300cc two-stroke. It has a balancer. It's okay. I think that these get overlooked because of the marketing of the parallel twin is that they're so smooth. They're so smooth. They give good power down low. Well, I can guarantee that a 450 is more power than you need anywhere and any gear at any time. Your throttle control is so important on a 450 that it's not about not having low end torque. You have torque on a 450. These things are absolute animals. So this is just the Honda option. If you're looking for a Honda, you have if that's something you're interested in, you have a Honda for an option. This is aluminum frame. It starts with a skid plate, starts with disc protection. It starts with everything that you need to go rally race. You could literally buy one of these today, ride it for 6 hours, go to any trail you want, absolutely shred on that trail, have the time of your life because it's a lightweight bike. You could crash, pick it up, crash, pick it up, crash, pick it up over and over and over again, and it would be completely fine. And you'd have your plates, mirrors, lights, turn signals. You're ready to rock. You have a skid plate, disc protection. I'm trying to see if it has disc protection on the rear. And oh, would you look at that? The brake line in the front and the speedometer cable are routed correctly, so it's not going to get caught up on anything. And all of these bikes are within the same general price range. So they kind of all compare to one another. So this is just the Honda option. Let's go ahead and look for other options. There are many options from the big name brands. Yamaha makes this WR 450. Again, great bike. This is actually one of the better bikes off-road that I've ever been on. The suspension on the Yamaha is incredible. Yamaha put a lot of time into making this pipe start from the back of the engine and then wrap around, and then they also made it so that the filter sits on top, so it's up nice and high, so you don't have to worry about river crossings or anything like that, and the air comes in through the front. The engine spins in the opposite direction, so this bike feels very different to most other motorcycles. And genuinely, this is a very good bike. It doesn't come with disc protector. Well, it comes with one in the rear, but it doesn't come with one in the front. But I think for most people, that's probably going to be okay. But again, this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. If you go to rally races, you will very likely see a WR 450 lining up. Again, you can ride this for hours and hours and hours to the trail. You can change the tires to have street tires. You can change to have knobby tires. It's up to you. But when you go to the trail, you're going to have an absolute blast because you're not going to be tired from having to pick up a 600-pound motorcycle over and over again. Or in the case of what my bike was a 950, I think it weighed like 450 pounds. That's insane. That's completely unnecessary, and it doesn't make the riding better. Having extra horsepower, extra torque doesn't make anything better because off-road, a 450 is more than you'll ever need. What options do we have from the European crews? Okay, well, that's a good question. I have a friend who owns an EXCF 500. I think it's a great bike, but just in the spirit of all the other bikes are 450s, I wanted to stay within the 450. And KTM's got you covered. People don't realize that the EXC, if you go to KTM, you go to models, you hit enduro, all of those bikes are street legal. All of those models have lights. They have turn signal options. Like they all are wired to go off and on road, and they're all built to ride. They're built to do these things. So again, if you're looking for a bike that you can ride on the road for long term, get to the trail and have an absolute blast, here you go. I would actually argue that the 350 is the better option, but again, we're staying within the spirit of all bikes are pretty much even. And the 450, this is more expensive than the other one. And to be honest, to be quite blunt, as a KTM owner, I do not believe that this is worth more than the Yamaha is. And one of the main reasons for that is just that you're going to have the same amount of fun on both bikes. But if you're looking for an orange bike and you're willing to pay the extra, these are steel frame, which is a big difference. And the other big difference we've already passed is actually the suspension. And the rear suspension is a PDS, so progressive dampening system. I used to like it in the past because it was simpler, and I was like, simpler is always better. But now I realize after reading some books about suspension, the disadvantages of it. And I would actually recommend a linkage suspension, even though they are more complicated and they do get snagged on rocks. They're just able to handle stuff a little bit better. The PDS is great, and I don't think anybody is going to notice. But if we're nitpicky, which I'm here to nitpick, I think that you're paying more for a bike with a subpar shock. Just to say, these are really good shocks though, but they're competing against the Yamaha. That's tough to do. So KTM has you covered. Now, if we head on over to a blanket, like a company owned by the same company that KTM, if we're going to go to Husqvarna. Honestly, love the way Husqvarnas look. I love white bikes. And they come with a linkage rear suspension that we just talked about. So these are pretty dang good. These are pretty dang good. For the price, I think that they're about the same as the KTM. I would take the Husqvarna any day of the week because it's going to be basically the same bike as the KTM. I do believe, though, that they had issues with their brakes. I think they just did a big recall. So, I mean, if now's good because you can go get your brakes fixed. But I know these engines are absolute beasts. I know that their transmissions are insane. I know that these bikes are going to take a beating because I have done it. I know because I have experienced how strong these things are. It's insane, and I definitely recommend them to anybody. They just look good too. So there's that. The hybrid subframe I don't like. This is the reason for that is that I break stuff, and this is a plastic top. You can see the subframe on top is plastic, and then it goes down to aluminum one. It's kind of hard to weld plastic properly. I can get my aluminum subframe welded. I do it all the time. I've broken my subframe many times. So yeah. And if you're thinking, how do you break a subframe? Well, once you start riding off-road, you'll understand. Which again, this bike is meant to go on and off-road. It has turn signals, it has lights, has brakes, has everything that makes this bike perfectly street legal. And it's an incredible bike. It also comes with a ton of, I don't know about the WR or the Honda, but this thing comes with a ton of features, like traction control, but it comes with a bunch of cool features. And if that's what you're into, cool. It's got a map switch and quick shifters, and there's so much that comes with one of these bikes that people think, oh, that's a dirt bike. It's not going to have all the features of the road bike, but it does. It has all the things that you need. And seriously, if you go to a rally race or if you go to a long hare scramble, 6 hours or more, you're not going to see adventure bikes. You're going to see these bikes. In fact, these are even big. Again, I would recommend the 350 over the 450, but we're on this path. We're going down this path. So are there other options though? Yes. Would you look at that? There's another company called Beta, depending which part of the world you're from, that makes a whole bunch of street legal bikes that you can use to go to the trails and ride on the trails and actually have fun. Imagine that. So the RR is the one that I like. They also make a non-RR. And they say, oh, look at it. And I like the way that Beta advertises. They're not saying each bike needs its own website because they don't. They're all the same frame. They're all the same everything. But here you go. You've got they're four tiempo. It's four times. 4 tiempo, 4-stroke. 4T race. It comes in 350, the one I recommend, 390, 43. That's a lot of different sizes to pick from. You'd be happy with the 350, or you could go if you want something bigger for 430 or 40. It does matter, but also I think you'll be happy with all of these bikes. And these come with an excellent suspension, linkage rear, lights, everything you need to have fun. So when I see the argument being made that the bikes that I like are not practical for long distance travel, when I see people say that the bikes that I like are not practical for long distance, I want to be able to put in the hours and then go to the trail and then come home. Yeah, I know, I get it. I understand. I've done it. I've raced for 6 hours. I've raced for 8 hours in a rally. I've rally raced. I've hare scramble. I've done hard enduro. I get what you're saying, but be a big boy. It's not going to be, your butt's going to be okay. That's what I want to say. Like, we can't have a Harley that goes off-road. I know Harley sells a Harley that goes off-road, but that is not going to be fun. That's going to be so frustrating because you're going to tip it over. You're going to fall. Now you got to pick up a giant heavy bike. Ask me how I know. My first motorcycle was a giant heavy off-road bike, and I really truly thought that was the way to go. I immediately, within months of riding it, was like, this is not good. What do I do? How can I make this bike better? I put new tires on it. I tried that. I tried a bunch of different stuff. And in the end, the answer was always right there in front of me: buy a smaller bike. I bought a 450, and believe it or not, I actually came to realize after a year of riding, and now after 3 years of racing, I realized a 450 is even too big. But because everybody wants a big bike with big power that can go on the highway and cruise at low RPM, 450. If you don't think a 450 can cruise on the highway at low RPM, you've never ridden one. That's all I need to say. They can get up to 70 miles an hour and just chill, no problem. I know a lot of people in America, because I'm from America, I know you guys think that you need at least 600 cc's to cruise on your highways. It's not true. It's just not true. What you're thinking of is a motocross bike. A motocross bike is geared so low that at 70 miles an hour, it is topped out, because motocross tracks don't require more than that. My KTM 450 enduro bike was very happy going over 100 miles an hour. It did not care at all. And then it would get to the point where it's like, what am I doing? I need to chill out. So off-road bike going over 100 miles an hour, unless you're Sam Sunderland or some kind of crazy nut job, you're going to get scared before the bike does. On the road, I understand that 100 isn't that big of a deal, but off-road, that's insane. But if a bike can go 100 miles an hour on the road, it is going to be able to chill at 70 miles an hour while you go to your trail. I will say a drawback to these motorcycles, every single one that I've showed you, is that luggage is an issue. You can't bring everything you want with you. If you want to go on vacation and go to hotels and be able to have your suit and tie, these aren't the bikes for you. Go to the bigger ones. But if you want to go be a hooligan, put on your dirt bike boots and go ride to a trail 4 hours away, absolutely shred that trail, and then come home that same day, these are the bikes for you. And these are the bikes for me. Like, I totally understand where people are coming from, that they want comfort to go to the trails, but I don't understand why this is uncomfortable. These are perfectly fine. These are amazing motorcycles, and I definitely recommend getting on one of these. If you think that it's going to shake your hands off because it's a single cylinder, it won't. They're balanced. If you think that it's not going to be as reliable because single cylinder, that's hilarious, because these bikes are bulletproof. I definitely recommend checking out the 450 segment. Skip the 300s are great bikes too, but anything more than a 450 for off-road is absolutely insane, and you're not going to have fun. They're going to be too heavy. So every time you crash, which you do often, or just tip over, which again you do often, you're going to be weightlifting, and you're just going to drain yourself just from trying to keep the motorcycle in that vertical direction. So I want to talk about this, so go ahead and sound off if you guys have different feelings on why you should or should not buy a 450 or 500 or 350, which is really what I would argue, but 450 is going to be what most people are comfortable going down to, which is hilarious to think that for 450 is people are like, well, I'm comfortable going down. That's funny, because guys, an off-road world 450 is the biggest bike we have. Off-road 450 max. On-road, you guys, until you've ridden one of these on the road, you don't understand that you don't need more than this. These bikes absolutely fly. You do not need more bike than a 450 for dual sport. I understand. I've owned a Yamaha R1. I understand why a 450 seems small. I've been there. I've done that. I've owned a leader bike and thought, wow, this is incredible. I want more somehow. But as who I am now, who races off-road and does rally racing and stuff, this is it. This is the top I will go. There's no reason to go bigger than this. So anyways, like I've said already 3 times, I'm going to actually end it off. Thank you so much for watching. Let's talk about this bike in the comments below. Have a good one.